If you didn't just watch the video where I describe marginal revenue and I have a Google Sheet up and I look through some data and um, describe why marginal revenue is different than the demand curve, go back and watch that. I'm going to assume that you've seen that. And I ended by saying that marginal revenue goes down faster than the demand curve. There's like math and calculus explanation, and you can see a different video that'll talk about that, fully optional, calculus based, but it might help you connect the dots between calculus and economics. Uh, but the big takeaway is in order to sell one more, I have to lower the price, but I have to lower the price for everybody. So my marginal revenue goes down super duper fast. Some textbooks I've read that just say marginal revenues half as or twice as steep as the demand curve. That's true given a handful of assumptions. I talk about those in the math focused one. But the idea is that marginal revenue is lower because if I want to sell one more, I lower the price for that to get that person to buy. So I lower the price to $10. But everyone who's willing to spend above $10 now pays $10 because there's one price. So I lose all the revenue from them, even though I gain one more buyer. Profit maximizing condition. You want to produce whenever the marginal revenue is greater than the marginal cost all the way up until they're equal. If marginal revenue is above marginal cost, that means selling one more, you're going to make profit. If marginal cost is above marginal revenue, sell one more, you're going to be producing with a negative profit. So here's the point where you've taken sold as many as you can to make sure that marginal revenue is above marginal cost. That's how a firm decides the profit maximizing quantity. That's Q star M. But here's the big thing, and this is where students make a mistake all the time. In a perfect competition, okay, marginal revenue was horizontal, so this marginal revenue is different because to sell more, we have to lower the price and lower the price for everybody, sure. And we just found where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. There's quantity, made a couple of rectangles to find profit. Very much different with a monopoly because, sure, that's the quantity, but if I can produce and sell those at a cost of $10, but I have price control, I can, or sorry, that brings in 10 more dollars, I can adjust the price based on what people are willing to pay at that amount. So when I lower the price to $10, I won't change my revenue by $10. I'll change my revenue by the plus 10 and minus all the money that I could have gotten before. If you're not fully following that, again, check back on the other video. The point here being is, well, what's the price that will make the quantity demanded QM star? And a firm can find that price by looking up to the demand curve. The demand curve is the relationship between price and quantity. Just like in perfect competition now, this rectangle that has the red dot up here, dotted lines, can be represented by price, a height, times quantity, a width, and that's revenue. And then similarly, I started writing the dot here. This rectangle is quantity times average total cost. Quantity times average, or number times average, gives you total. This is total cost. Revenue minus cost leaves a firm with a whole lot of profit. Big step is that marginal revenue is different than demand. Going back to profit maximization happening when marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost helps the firm to get the quantity, equilibrium quantity, that, or not the equilibrium, but the profit maximizing quantity, but then revert back to the demand curve to figure out what price will get that many people to purchase the product, work out the rectangles for price times quantity revenue, quantity times average total cost for total cost, and come up with the difference being the profit, and that's this big rectangle. In perfect competition with an economic profit, firms would enter. But because of patents, because of government mandates, because of control of resources, because of economies of scale. So if you're Amazon, you can say, well, if you want to open up a new e-commerce business, go ahead and do it. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. But it would be almost impossible for me to get into that market because the startup's cost would just be too high. So there's a lot of reasons that a firm might be a monopoly. And when a firm has a monopoly, they keep this economic profit, whereas in perfect competition, it got ground down to zero. You might have heard of reasons why people don't necessarily like monopolies, and I'll touch on that briefly in the next video.